Okay, so this is the low back, I would say, protocol. I would say low back protocol. Honestly, this is a lot of education and taking you through like what we look at when it comes to low back issues, low back pain. Once again, as with anything else, it's always interconnected, right? We can't just look at one thing, and we are going to address a number of things that we see low back issues with. Now, think of this as because we're going to go through a bunch of stuff. I'm going to explain some things. So this would move faster if you were just doing it with a client, if you were doing it with yourself. But also, remember you can take certain components of this. If it was just a training session right now, like for instance, me and Theo were going through a training session, I was coaching him up, I might spend, do 5-6 exercises with him, the ones that are the most effective because we figured out what they are. And then we'd go through that, then we go into, kind of more specific dynamic warm up and start training. Now, if a client's coming in and, we're assessing them and like they got a lot of issues, we might spend, the full 30-45 minutes or an hour teaching them a lot of this stuff so they can do some of it themselves on a daily basis. And, then when they come in and coach with you, you're just doing certain specific things that you want to drill in and be really specific with. Now, think this is the bigger picture. There's going to be 4 different things that we're going to kind of work on doing, okay? Number 1, release, right? Meaning release soft tissue, release the tone in the muscles, right? Because most people are coming in, they're wound up, meaning certain things are going to be really tight and wound up, okay? Certain things are going to be overactive, so we want to release, okay? We're going to use soft tissue tools for that. We're going to use breathing for that. Then we're going to mobilize, right? So we want to make sure that we create some joint mobility, and like especially once we get new ranges of motion, we want to now train those ranges of motion. So we're going to mobilize. Then we're going to activate, right? So we mobilize things that are usually tight and not moving well. We're going to activate things that are dormant that need to work better when it comes to low back pain. And then we're gonna ramp up, like just fire it up, like CNS, just get things going and ramp up the CNS. I'm not gonna show you too much of that stuff, guys, because that's more than moving into your training session. And we'll have a whole separate kind of video and sequence for that and ramp up drills. But drill number 1, and this is, there's so much benefits to this, and there's so many places that we go with the breathing, but we'll have pretty much every client come in before they even go and train and start with just this breathing, okay? Now, we teach this, and you'll say, like, why do I need to teach breathing? And you'll see why when you do this drill, why that's so important, okay? Because one of the things is most people actually are very chest breathing, right? So they breathe through the chest, okay? Up here, and they have a ton of, they use secondary breathing muscles. They get tight neck, scalenes, hip flexors, all that stuff, right? And also they carry tension. They're breathing shallow, which means they're very sympathetic, fight or flight all day, right? Can't recover. Muscles are toned and on, okay? So here we're going to kind of reset that a little bit. So what we're going for is feet are up in the air, low back's in the ground. I'm going to exhale for as long as I can. And, I tell clients, try to think like you're blowing a candle out. Until I literally have no more air in my stomach. From here, my rib cage is usually going to go down, and I'm going to breathe in through my nose, and I'm going to cue the person to breathe deep into the belly. So I might even give them a cue and put my fingers down and say, hey, breathe into my fingers here. And then hold it. So we try to do box breathing. Exhale for 5, hold for 5, inhale for 5, hold for 5. And if people can't do that, we just adjust it, right? So now I'm going to breathe out again. I'm holding, and I'm breathing in again, deep into my belly. And holding again. And what you notice is, what we'll tell clients is when you breathe out, think like you're sinking into the floor, okay? And this is tons of relaxation. So remember, parasympathetic breathing, meaning fully exhaling, activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest, relaxation, okay? And that's why this is so important. Now, most people, once you're cueing them through this, I promise you're gonna kind of see something like this, right? Breathe out. Breathe out more. They have nothing else to breathe out. Okay, breathe deep into the belly. They'll go right into the chest, right? And as you're cueing them, breath 6, 7, 8, they'll actually breathe more out and get more air into the belly and breathe more in, and you'll start seeing this expansion in the stomach. Like, so the way that you want it to go is first blow, I would say air into the belly, then it goes to mid rib cage, and then apical expansion. So it goes bottom kind of up, right? And so that's the way that you want to do this. And it's a great coaching cue because most people will not be able to do this well, to show them like how big of a difference it makes. Once they're done with this, most people will feel better right off the bat. Tightness in the low back gone. Because like I said, the muscles like that are toned will relax, okay? Which is why we start with this, because sometimes, or a lot of times, when we do a good reset, like a breathing reset, you won't have to do as much soft tissue work. You won't have to do as much rolling, right? Your quads, your low back, things like that. And you'll notice right away. So this is a money drill. We're gonna do a whole separate video just on breathing, some PRI breathing, some other things that you can do and that you get help with for coaching in different situations. It's a game changer, and you'll certainly, you'll certainly be the person that's like, holy shit, like you're able to help me like so quick. Okay, so that's our breathing drill. We'll usually do 8 to 10 breaths, spend 3, 4, 5 minutes on this, depending on the client. Sometimes if it's a new person, they're having a lot of stuff going on, we will certainly do, I would say, teach them this for 10, 12, 15 minutes, however long we need to, because then they can start doing some of it by themselves. From there, the reality is that most people, and I'm going to show you guys like 2 different things that I really, really love that we're going to go to next, right? Because we said release first, right? Release, then mobilize, then we're going to activate, right? And then from there, we're going to go CNS or do some pump work as well. And this is the Psoas. Like, there's other ways. Actually, matter of fact, I'll show you another way with a kettlebell, how to do a certain release. But the Psoas is just phenomenal as far as, releasing your psoas. I mean, pretty much that's its main kind of, you can do a lot of other things with it, but this is what we're going to focus on today. And you're going to just find those points in that kind of like ASIS, and you'll know when you're on it, like you'll feel it, right? Because it's been made to essentially dig right into where those hip flexors are. And you're gonna feel that tension. And so the goal from there is, and like you can kind of see where it's at. And it's not the most pleasant thing in the world, but that's the whole point, right? To get that release. And from here, instead of being tense, I'm going to do what I was doing earlier, like the breathing. So I'm gonna breathe out. Breathe in. And then once I breathe out, I'm literally gonna try to pull that soul right into my body, right? That's your thought process when you breathe out. So I'm sinking into it and breathing in. And right now, actually, it's letting go. I can feel it kind of sinking in. And you can shift your hips a little bit to find those gnarly spots, obviously where it's going to give you the best release. And you can go for a couple minutes on this. I like the breathing part of it. Once again, you're going to remember, when hips are tight, so think about it this way. Your psoas like connects to 7 low back vertebrae, right? So when it's tight, when your front side is tight, and it's pulling you into this anterior tilt, right? So it's pulling your pelvis back because it's connected to your vertebrae. So now your low back, right, you're arching all day long. You're putting stress on those joints, on those tissues, right? When you release the hip flexors and you strengthen and activate the core, which we'll do in a little bit, right? Now you get into this position. Now you're loading the glutes up more. Now that your joints are in an anatomically good position, right, with less stress, they're not getting banged up, and your posture is just better off, right? Now, that's a big difference here, okay? So this is just a tool, a great, I would say, thing that you can do before training, in the evening. There's a lot of different stuff that you can do with it, right? So, and it's like I said, I like to look at things like what's going to give me a quick result, right? What's going to give me a result that sticks, that we can kind of create that training window with. Next one, and this is somewhat similar, but we call this gut smash, and you can do this with lacrosse balls. This is a mobility watt palm ball you could get a Supernova, and you can get it at Row. And think of it this way, right? Like, think where you're kind of like your bar, your king crack is, like, and you're gonna work around that area, and you'd be surprised, just releasing some of those tissues that, remember, you have so many different, I would say, muscles that connect into the pubis, right? So from your abdominal wall to your adductors to your hip, right? So that's gunked up. It's called a zone of it's called a zone of convergence, right? So there's 3 of those in the body where a lot of muscles come together and cross over, and it can get gunky. So we're gonna go, like, most people never think about this with back pain, right? They're rolling out their back, maybe they're rolling out their quads and stretching their hips, but going into like this kind of gut smash where I'm laying over that soft tissue of the abs, and that goes down into the pubis, and just working that, whoo, right? So I found a spot. And here, I mean, just hanging out, one thing is like you can either just hang out, breathing, right, not be intense. The other thing I like to do here is actually get some of those tissues moving, right? So I'm gonna start flexing and extending my knee, finding those different positions, and it'll release. So like while I'm laying on this feels uncomfortable, but as I breathe, starting to let go. And I'm feeling my obliques here too, right? Because remember, all that's connected. It's all fascia that connects. So as I'm kind of moving and turning, once again, like try to, a lot of times I'll kind of pin that tissue and get a little bit of a stretch now and breathe here. And I feel it letting go. And I find a little bit more of an angle here and pin that tissue and stretch it and right? And I can move all the way along that abdominal wall to the other side. And just that, like this, on a serious note, guys, like you have no idea how much better right now that feels. On my hip, right? On my low back, right? I had a pretty tough leg day yesterday. That feels amazing. What was that, 30, 45 seconds? That's it. And like, just being able to, first of all, do it on yourself before you're doing it on clients, just so you feel it, because you want to know, like, hey, yeah, this is uncomfortable, in certain areas. Help people breathe through it, because like that 30, 45 seconds, 1 minute, it's going to feel so good afterwards that they're going to buy in. Once again, they're going to buy into this, right? So with that said, those are all release. I'm going to spend a little less time because you've probably seen me use this on, I will say, the knee protocol. So I'm going to go through it pretty fast. I absolutely love body tempering. We've used it now for a good amount of time. I've actually, probably about 6 years ago is when I started learning about it and using it. But now we have the tools, which is great. But with body tempering, it's obviously a heavy weight. Sometimes, like this one is 135, 140 pounds. They call it the ex-wife. You can get it at Kabuki Strength Lab. And like for the quads, it's great because I can just do this on myself, right? And once again, I can find these, like this is 135 pounds, I can find these gritty spots, just hang out there, right? Just breathe, hang out, let it release. It can take 20 seconds, might take a minute, might take 2, right? But like, and I can control the weight, I can go up heavier, right? I can lean it, right? So my goal here would be, and like I want a spot that's nasty right now, right? Would just be hold it here until it starts releasing, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 60 seconds, and work around, like I said, quad, lateral quad, adductor. Showed you guys how to do the adductor here, but we can go VMO, we can go adductor, move it in here, right? And just hang out. And this is great because I can do this completely myself. If it's on the front side, usually if, like I said, if we're working with somebody in coaching, we will put a foam roller under the feet. So imagine if I'm right here, I put my head down like this, I put my foam roller under my ankles, and then we would roll out, put it on the hamstrings, the glutes, upper back even. But here to focus, I would certainly say adductor, glutes. We'll do a whole series on body tempering. That's literally all body tempering, but very, very valuable too. If you don't have that, you can go with, like I said, rollers that have creases, even just regular rollers. But this is obviously better because I can get in there, right, as I'm getting into those tight spots, and then I can flex and extend that knee. I can turn, right, work that. Right, just get that kind of pin and stretch technique going. So from there, same thing, you know, low back, you're gonna have that TFL, glute med. We wanna release, right? We've been on this kind of whole release phase. So we wanna release the specific areas. Anything that ties into the hips is usually gonna be, you know, stuff that we wanna affect. From hamstrings to adductors, to hip flexors, right? To like I said, abs, to glute med. So this is one I'm going to do real quick here that I've shown on the knee part, but finding that glute med TFL and then just working flexion extension here, finding your angles and just working that. Okay, so like I said, if you do a proper release with some of these things, you won't have to do as much work on the rollers and the soft tissue work. Even just the breathing in itself, you know, if you can find like 3-4 different things that like really work for you, that's going to be phenomenal. And you know, that's going to do a lot of the work, and just teaching people to do some of these things by themselves, the things that they can. Like I said, you know, most people won't feel comfortable doing anything like body tempering, and that's okay. Probably shouldn't at the beginning for sure. But and like I said, you control that, make sure that they're getting the right things in.